Today's session, as I say, is all about mastering Microsoft 365, and we've got Peter Ingram, who has joined us from Ingram Micro, and he's going to be taking you through the sort of all the licenses, the sort of security features on that, and all the sort of products that you can get within that sort of Microsoft 365 substack. I'm not prepared to say anything more. I am probably the person with the least expertise in the room today. So I'm going to hand you over. Dave, I don't know whether you want to say anything before we hand over to Peter.
So no, I'm fine. I just welcome everybody. Hopefully you enjoy it or get some value out of it, because that's what it's all about. We're looking to do several more of these over the coming months with the team, and we're always eager for feedback, and also to try and understand if there's anything that firms would like to understand a little bit more in these sessions. So if you have a requirement, please feel free to reach out to Helen and team. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, David. Yes, we'll be sending out a survey at the end, so please do let us know if there's anything else you'd want. I think we're certainly going to put some sessions on things like Copilot and Teams and SharePoint, amongst other things. So we've got some dates lined up, so we'll send you all that information on the back of this. But in the meantime, I think let's just hand over to Peter, because we've got a full agenda for the rest of the for the hour. Peter, over to you, and welcome to Bristol Law Society, and thank you very much for speaking to our members today.
Cool. Thank you, Helen. Great to be here. So hi, everyone. Hopefully I'll not try to bore you in terms of the licensing side of things. I find Microsoft doesn't entirely make it easy for its consumers to understand its methodologies and its thinking and its reasoning behind some of its software products. But hopefully I can make it a bit more understandable for you in today's session. In regards to how we're going to go through this today, we're going to talk about the challenges briefly here around what businesses face. And then we'll talk about the Microsoft solutions, and then we'll do a bit of a deep dive into what do those solutions mean for a business. Now, obviously with an emphasis on law and legal, of course, everyone suffers from the same challenges that we have been, especially in the last 4 years since, I'm sorry to drop the name in there, the pandemic. Yeah, every business should resonate with these in terms of, how can we distribute our work better? How can we maintain our security? How can we reduce our costs with consolidation efforts in regards to IT? With more and more people wanting flexibility with remote working, whether it's to do the school runs, whether it's because it's cheaper versus the transport into London or wherever you're based. But then there's also a massive increase in phishing and ransomware. And believe it or not, the threat actors are also trying to get hybrid working as well. They're trying to do their job working from home remotely. So in regards to them attacking individuals and users, they're not just limiting it to the random email saying, you've just won £500,000 from a prince in Abu Dhabi. Please click here to claim your prize. They're also attacking the individuals in your business as well, but in more sophisticated ways than what you would find on your personal email, by saying, there's a document here that you're required to sign. Please click here to sign in. And people would think, oh, I'm really busy. I'll just go, I don't know what this is all about. I'll click on it. I'll have a look. Or it will say, maybe they've had a look on LinkedIn and they've seen that, you're connected to other people within LinkedIn, and they'll randomly drop you an email and say, oh, hey, such and such asked me to speak to you regarding this. Can you have a look at this attached document that Sophie said in marketing? And you're like, oh, I know Sophie in marketing. This person must be real. And they're using the technology that we're already signed up for to initiate that kind of truth in what we're doing, because all of the information is out there for people to take advantage of. The Microsoft saying in terms of, trust no one is called zero trust. Always assume breach, always assume there's something behind whatever the ask is, where someone's trying to ask you very urgently to click on something, or to review something, or to log into somewhere that you're unsure of. Always double check where they are. But again, that's the kind of the business challenge that we kind of look at today. And it's no surprise there that, everyone's heard of the dark web, but not very many people venture into it. But these are just some of the prices that Microsoft have provided us for this webinar today on how much it costs to get data that's been compromised. 13 cents on the dollar for a PC that's been compromised. If someone compromises your PC in your environment, they'll sell that that login information or the details to access that machine on the dark web for as little as 13 cents. If you want some stolen passwords, you know, maybe from the recent EasyJet or, you know, Arnold Clark or Royal Mail hacks, even the NHS and their partners that they work with. If you want 400 million passwords, it's only going to cost you $150. And, you know, if you're thinking, do you know what, I want a bit of a sideline job, I want the ability to go and earn myself some extra money, there you go, £250 per job for an attacker, or for a ransomware kit, $66 up front, and you keep 30% of the profit. So it's quite a lucrative market out there, and you can understand why so many businesses are being attacked on a regular basis. Now, to go into that in a bit more detail before we lead into the licensing side of things with Microsoft, you might be surprised to hear that Microsoft is actually one of the leading tech innovations in regards to security. And the reason why they are, and you know, you think of security and you think, oh, Sophos and, you know, McAfee and, you know, Norton and all these other, and Symantec, all these, you know, big cybersecurity companies. They do not have the same footprint as Microsoft does. Hence why Microsoft is one of the leading security providers, because they touch so many devices and people across the world on their platforms. So thinking about it right now, we're all potentially using a Windows machine right now to access, you know, our day-to-day, you know, productivity suites. We're potentially using Office 365. We might have an email address with work using Exchange. We might even have our own personal email through Outlook. We might have an Xbox in our home. We might be using the Bing search engine to search for things. We might be using the Edge browser to browse for certain content and things. And you can see there that all the signals that are being sent through these different applications are monitored in terms of, is there a threat? Is there an attachment on there that is malicious? Has a device been compromised because a link was clicked on? And all the algorithms are learning, what is a new and emerging threat? Okay, this is the new and emerging threat. Let's patch this. Oh, here's another new and emerging threat. And this threat happens quite differently to the most common threats. Oh, this business has been compromised. We'll learn from this and we'll make sure that other businesses are not suffering from the same fate. And you can see there that, you know, 32 billion threat emails are blocked annually. You know, 785,000 customers rely on Microsoft, you know, from a multi-platform infrastructure security platform. And that's, you know, individual businesses. That's not users, that's businesses so far. In regards to, you know, the amount of signals that are analyzed daily, 78 trillion signals. So it's quite an enormous number to think about when it comes to what can Microsoft see and what can Microsoft prevent in terms of an attack. Now, it's no surprise that it's quite difficult to understand the behemoth of all the things that Microsoft can offer from a services perspective. So we're going to go through the 3 core offerings. Now, that's not these 3 products here. These are 3 sections. So we've got 3 slides back to back where we'll cover off how to understand what the licensing means within Microsoft to make you a master of it, okay? So we're not going to cover everything. There's over 400 different license types, with the most expensive license being £65,000 a month. That's something for your trivia and your pub quizzes. It's a Power BI Plan 5 license if you want to know. But yeah, so these are some of the most common licenses from an SMB perspective. So if you're a business under 300 users total, you will typically find yourself using one of these 3 licenses here. And they all come with a flavor of products and services to help you be more productive, more secure in this digital age. So we'll start off with Business Basic. It starts from just under a £5 per user per month, and you get access to Teams, Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, Microsoft Bookings. You get access to Outlook, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, but only for the web browser. These are web-based apps. You do not get to install these on your device. And that's a desktop, of course, like a laptop. You can obviously access them all from the Android or iOS stores and things like that. And it includes foundational security things such as MFA and basic anti-spam and anti-malware and things like that. Okay. And this is where your kind of basic license for somebody to be productive in the web and have access to Teams and Exchange. Now, the most common license in the market, probably going back 5 years now, was Business Standard. It was under a tenner previously, but with the recent price rise, now £10.30. And it has everything that you need for a growing business. You can install Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Teams, Exchange. You get it all within your subscription. And it includes the foundational security, like Business Basic, to have the basic necessities to run your organization. And think of this as your productivity suite. This is the main arm of how to be productive from a task perspective. Most companies that have this license will bolt on a third-party service for security or compliance and other things, maybe even using Zoom in that case, like today. For collaborating with other users for voice and video chat. And it's no surprise there that Microsoft has got an even better offer than what everyone was using, and it's called Business Premium. It was formerly called Microsoft 365 Business prior to 2019, I believe, or 2020. But it obviously includes everything that Business Standard does, but it includes the comprehensive security technologies that Microsoft offer today for the modern workplace. So we'll go into them a bit more detail later, but as you can see here, you've got things like Intune, which is your device management capability, so you can control what devices connect to your network. You've got Microsoft Purview, which is the compliance side of the environment and the data residency and things like that. You've got Entra ID, which is your identity manager, previously known as Active Directory. You've got Azure Virtual Desktop capabilities where you can connect to a virtualized environment rather than having to use your PC, of course, as your main hub. And then you've got Microsoft Defender for Business, which is included as well, which is your antivirus and your endpoint manager as well. So this is your automatic investigation and response. This is your endpoint detection. This is your full-blown, endpoint manager for controlling and responding to threats live. Okay, and that's the tipping point of what it makes that subscription so great, as you could have a breach potentially, over the weekend, and it will remediate that breach based on the settings that you procure. So you could say, if something tries to manipulate or change files, I want you to do this in my absence. So it's your 24/7, 365 days a year security response team within the subscription. So it's quite a clever piece of technology. Now, that's obviously if you're under 300 users as a business. All right. So ideally suited, you would always go to Business Premium. All right. So this will be your first arm of defense, and this will include all your productivity suite. But what if you say, oh no, but I've just grown to 330 users, or I'm just over 500 users now. Now Microsoft has enterprise offerings. Okay. And now you will be familiar with the likes of Office E3 and Office E5 and so on and so forth. But there's some big changes afoot at the moment. As you can see here, it says no Teams under the title. I don't know if you caught the announcement. It was on April Fool's Day, so it may have caught some people out. But Microsoft announced that they were removing Teams from enterprise offerings completely. Now, this is fine if you've already got these subscriptions specifically. So if you're on an enterprise subscription already, you're fine. You don't need to worry about it. But Microsoft is removing Teams from these products from October officially. You can still buy them with and without Teams at the moment. But in terms of the longevity of our discussion today, you will have to buy Teams separately if you do not already have these subscriptions. Now, in regards to why Microsoft is doing that, have a look on the web. You can have a look in terms of why Microsoft is doing it. There's a lot of truth in the matter, and there's a lot of things going around it. But the important thing to know is that if you're already on an enterprise subscription, you've got Teams. Okay, as long as that subscription doesn't lapse, you can keep Teams. But if you're buying this subscription brand new from October, you will have to buy Teams separately, which will be on top of the costs that you see below there. Now, we can talk about that in a bit more in the Q&A later, but for the essence of time in terms of what it is, you can see it's a very similar setup to the whole Business Basic, Business Standard, Business Premium approach. Starting with Office E3, it's your productivity suite, okay? But it does include the desktop apps that you can use and install. Then we're moving into Microsoft 365 E3, and you're wondering, well, there's two E3s, there's only a slight name difference. Well, the biggest difference is anything that has the kind of Microsoft 365 E3 kind of title in it, or M365, it will typically include the comprehensive security. Okay, so you've got the likes of your Intune, your Microsoft Purview, Entra ID, and Azure Virtual Desktop. But you can see that there's no Defender within that subscription there. So if you're on a business premium license and you want to upgrade to the next level, you would typically go for M365 E3, but it doesn't include the security technologies. You can buy them separately, or you can jump to the mother of all subscriptions in productivity, which is Microsoft 365 E5. That is typically what most businesses use when they're over 300 seats, and they want Microsoft to control everything regarding their security and compliance footprint within the digital age. So as you can see there, it includes a whole host of additional products and services for the value that's offering, because that £20 a month jump from 31 to 50 is quite a difficult conversation to have with your finance team to say, we need this type of license. But you can see the justification here, and we'll go through that. So you've obviously got the likes of Teams Phone Standard. This is your dial pad within Teams. So if you're using a telephony provider, you can bring your telephony provider into the Teams platform ecosystem and use Teams as your main dial-out platform, rather than having to have desk phones all the time. So you can have that replace your phone functionality. And then you have the likes of Power BI Pro. So if you've got people using Power BI dashboards all the time, monitoring reports, looking at data a lot of the time, even viewing it, you do require a license, but they'll get a Power BI Pro license in there so they can create Power BI dashboards for analytical bits and pieces. And then you've also got the ability just to view as well. So that's quite important. And then you've got the likes of Outlook, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Loop, and Clipchamp. But then in terms of the comprehensive security approach, it goes a step further. And this is where it's quite clever. So obviously you've got Intune, you've got Microsoft Purview, Entra ID, Virtual Desktop, and Defender, as I spoke about before. But you get two additional things. So in terms of, find a typo there in terms of that, it's Microsoft Priva, not Purview. So you've got, in terms of additional layers of compliance, where you can control more compliance features within your data within E5. So you can control and have AI look at documents and say, oh, this document contains sensitive information, but it's not been categorized. Let's put a label on it and prevent people from sharing it externally. But then you've also got things like Defender for Cloud Apps, where you can have a look at all the third-party apps that are installed within your environment on the machines that people are using. And it can start to rate and score those apps to say, well, actually, this app is doing something out of the ordinary. This app isn't maybe a safe app to have within your environment. Oh, it's a Friday. All of a sudden at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, everyone has started downloading TikTok or eBay as an application. And you can block those types of apps being installed on people's machines. Because if they're using work in work time, yes, they might be using it on their break, but why is there a sudden influx of people using those applications? It will even point out to you, there's an application that's unfamiliar. It's installed in 5 users' machines. It's downloading a lot of data. Why is it sharing data with other applications? What's it doing? And you can go in and investigate in further detail. So not only protecting the outside threats, but you're also protecting the inside threats as well, that you may not be aware of. And then finally, we've got Microsoft Frontline. Now, this is typically a niche license stack, because you'll typically find this on organizations that have users that don't necessarily have a laptop or a device. So we're thinking haulage companies, transport companies that have lorry drivers, and the lorry drivers will not have a laptop, they'll just have a personal phone or tablet. We're thinking retail, the shop floor employees that are typically not on a machine and they're always using scanners and things like that. Taxi drivers, that type of thing, or even users in a warehouse. Maybe they're using a shared machine, and you don't want to license individual users with a license that they're not necessarily going to be using all the time. Well, you can license them with Frontline licenses, where they can still access the web-based versions of Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. They can access Teams and things like that. But maybe they don't have their own device. Maybe they're using a shared device in the warehouse or something like that, or in the office. Or maybe they're part-time, or maybe they're just using a phone and tablet all the time because they're always on the road. And these are the types of licenses that you would give them as well. Hence why they're so cheap, because you don't get any desktop installations. And you do have limitations in terms of what you get. So as much as it has OneDrive and SharePoint and stuff in there, and Exchange for Microsoft 365 F3, You do get a limited mailbox and OneDrive storage. So the previous ones that we just talked about in the previous slides all get a terabyte of storage for you to edit and save all your documents in. In these ones, you get a far lot less in terms of 2 gigabytes in terms of those ones there as well. So it's a lot less in terms of these users are not going to be as proactive or as engaging as my desktop users. Hence the price point. But again, you can see the familiarity there. So you got Office F3, which includes the foundational security, the basics of what you would do, and you would always try and ensure you have a third party preventing your business from being breached or attacked. And then you've got the likes of F1 and F3, which is your Microsoft 365 ones, which give you some comprehensive security technologies like Intune, Purview, and Entra ID as well. So Entra ID is probably the one that some people are unfamiliar with because it used to be called Active Directory. But you can see here in terms of what the setup is. So if you're looking at this now going, I'm a business under 300 users, I've got a mixture of enterprise licenses and frontline licenses, pick up the phone to Quiss and we can have a chat around the best way to license what your users are doing. Try and not think of it as I need to license everybody with the same license because you'll typically find yourself, you're just licensing everyone for a simple invoice tactic. The best way to license is either based on a department or a user's task within the organization. Where is that cog within the organization they're always doing work for? And what applications do they need the most and what do they not need at all? So you can better license people to the job in hand rather than just going, everyone can have a business premium, everyone can have a Microsoft 365 E3, because you might be overcompensating for what they actually need. Now, when it comes to what does all that mean, Peter? You've talked about Intune, you've talked about Purview, and you've talked about Defender and things. I don't entirely know what they mean. So I've put into place this little slide here that goes into a bit more detail about what this is. Again, we're only focusing predominantly on the SMB side of things, but as you can see here, in terms of use device security and access policies to ensure only compliant devices are accessing the resources within my environment. You get that as part of the standard offering from Microsoft. Single sign-on and multi-factor authentication, you get that across the board with almost every license within Microsoft 365. Basic email and exchange and things like that. You get access to a mailbox that you can create a user on and have a license. Again, depending on the user and what they're trying to do in the license you assign them will depend on the mailbox size, whether it's 2 gig or 50 gig or 100 gig. But then when we go into the more sophisticated things, you can see here, obviously, Microsoft 365 E5 and Business Premium. They're the pinnacles of those distribution of licenses where they allow certain clever features to protect your organization. And we'll go into them in a bit more detail as we go through, but encrypting sensitive emails and restricting copying and forwarding of confidential business information. That's quite a clever tool that you have, where if you're sending an email to a client and you want to know what they do with that, you don't know. You're at their arms of what they want to do with it. If you send an attachment to somebody, you don't know if they download it, copy the text, share it with somebody else. If you don't have any tools in place. And if you have Business Premium or E5, you can put in certain tools that say, this client has downloaded this document that I've sent them, and they've forwarded it on to a competitor. ABC Law for the namesake. And you could ring them up and go, why have you sent this to them? Maybe they're trying to compare prices and see and share information that they shouldn't be doing. Maybe a customer has decided to download something and share it with somebody that they shouldn't have. Maybe they copied and pasted it onto a Dropbox or a pen drive, and you can get notified. And you can even ensure that only the person that you're emailing is only allowed to open that document. So even if they do share it externally, you can have an encryption on the document that says, no, only people with this email address can access this document. And you being the author of the document, you can control whether you delete it from some random person's machine or remove it from their access as well. So if you think, oh, I don't want that person because they've shared it with 3 or 4 people, I'm going to remove even their access now. So you do have those controls within those types of licenses, and you may be paying for a third-party service that does this already, but it's all included within those different subscriptions. And as I said before, you've got Defender for Business and Defender for Endpoint within E5, where you can protect against ransomware attacks. And you do get enterprise-grade protection with EDR, which is your endpoint defense and remediation. Then you've also got AIR, which is attack something reduction. Can't remember, sorry, too many acronyms. But yeah, and then you've also got security against phishing and other cyber threats within Defender for Office Plan 1 and Plan 2 within E5, where it will scan attachments and links as they come into your inbox or even Teams. And before you've even clicked on them, it will tell you this is malicious or this is safe to open. And even if you do click on it when it says it's not safe to open, it will throw up a warning box to say, do not click into here. Please, please alert your IT team, or it will alert the IT team. And do you want the ability for the users to bypass this message and go, just take me straight to it? Or do you want it to completely block it and remove it from the machine? So you do have that control within that as well. And then in terms of Entra ID P1, where you have safeguards against password loss, self-service password reset, where users don't have to contact IT just to reset their password. They can do it themselves in a safe manner in terms of the types of questions it wants to ask you that only they would know and other people wouldn't. And then also you've got conditional access as well, where you can control when multi-factor authentication comes into play. Maybe it's whenever they're, outside of working hours or outside the country. I only wanted to trigger MFA on a certain basis. And then finally, in terms of Intune, where you can control the devices that are in your environment. So if people, maybe your work phone has died being on the train and you go, oh, I want to use my personal phone. And you want to say, actually, do you know what? I don't want any of my team accessing work-oriented information on their personal device. You can block that. But again, if you do want to allow it, you can put in certain parameters to say that they can't take screenshots when they're in the Office app or Outlook. They can't forward emails, onto an email address that's not your company, and so on and so forth. And even if they, have sensitive business information on their personal phone, you can wipe it remotely if they decide to leave the business, so they can't take it with them. So these are just some of the really cool technologies that you can get within the license stacks within Microsoft. Now, to go into a bit more detail about some of the things I've talked about. So MFA, as I said before, is included in all Microsoft 365 subscriptions from the get-go. Now, sometimes a lot of people were like, oh, MFA, it harms my users' productivity. People are getting locked out. They don't want to have an authentication app on their personal phone, or their other way. I don't issue work phones, and it's just an ignorance. It's inconveniencing our business. Well, there's other ways that you can authenticate users rather than just downloading the app on their personal phone, which they might not like, or they don't want to have to keep typing in the code every time they log in. You've obviously got things like Windows Hello with the cameras on the device. You've got biometrics if you've got a biometrics key in the device. And you've got FIDO keys as well, which are becoming increasingly popular, where your identity is this USB stick, and it will only let you log in when you've got the USB stick plugged in. And things like that. So you can do that. And obviously you've got text message as well. But again, a lot of businesses, where they don't issue a company phone and don't want users, or users are refusing to download the app, there is other ways to authenticate. But a great way to do it as well is through conditional access, which is included in Business Premium, Microsoft 365 E3 and E5, where you set up a certain parameter of conditions where it will only trigger multi-factor authentication if it's out of the ordinary. So you could say, I only expect the users within my business to log in between the hours of maybe 7 and 7 each day. And if a user tries to log in at 6 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock at night, it will trigger MFA because it's out of the ordinary. You could also set up parameters to say that you're only allowed to connect to work-oriented stuff on a work-oriented or issued device. And if they try to log in on a personal phone or a personal laptop, it will trigger MFA. It will not do it any other time. You can also say it's based on location. It will not do it when they're in the office. It will not do it when they're at home. But if they go to a random cafe in London and try to log in, it will trigger MFA. So out of the ordinary type of situation, so that it will only impact their use of logging on when it's doing something that they've never done before, or that you don't typically allow outside of your company policies. Okay. And yeah, as I said, you can set up certain parameters within conditional access so that, you have the Authenticator app. You can approve sign in with the touch of your fingerprint or a code or something like that. And it's important to know that 99% of identity attacks, where threat actors can only make a change to your environment by logging in as a user, can be prevented with authentication. Okay. Now, there is such a thing called authentication or MFA fatigue, where people are just approving stuff all the time because they're trying to log in, and maybe at the exact same time or within 2 minutes of that user logging in, it throws up another thing to say, do you want to log in? And you just approve it because you think it's the session you're already on, or it's the session you're trying to do. And that sometimes can be a threat actor trying to log on at the exact same time as you, and people just automatically approve it because they think it's themselves. So it's always important to set up multi-factor authentication with conditional access by saying, select one of these three 2-digit codes that are on screen on your device right now from your phone. So you're comparing the numbers between them so you know it's you that's logging in, not a random user. And then obviously from a sophisticated phishing campaign in terms of, where you're clicking on links, and a bit of insight for you. Hopefully this will be a nice takeaway for you. When you get a phishing email through and you think, oh, I know this is a phishing email, or I know this is suspicious, I don't trust this email, what would you do typically? Would you delete the email? Would you unsubscribe from the emails? Maybe you're getting a lot of them. Would you mark it as phishing to your IT team sort of thing? Believe it or not, the links sometimes in where it says, oh, click here to claim your prize, or click here, whatever, is typically not the threat link. The threat link is typically stored in the unsubscribe button. Because most people, when you're sending them the same email over and over and over and over again, even if it's from different web emails all the time, but it's the same content, a lot of people to this day will still click unsubscribe. And that is the breach link, not the link that they're saying, please click here. It's the unsubscribe link. So bear that in mind when you're unsubscribing from emails in future, because that's the real link that they want you to click on. And you wouldn't even know it happened until it's too late. But in terms of Defender for Office 365, which includes the anti-spoofing technology, this allows you to protect your users further by ensuring that if they do click on something, it will throw up this notification to say, this website has been classified as malicious, or this document is classified as malicious. We have detonated it in a safe environment. You cannot open this no longer. Or, are you sure you want to click on this link? It has been marked as suspicious. And then they can chat with their team. And in terms of the sensitive data, you've got labeling policies. So as lawyers and legal, you're always sending highly confidential information, whether it's deeds to your house, legal letters to sign and document, or maybe somebody's made a change to your file and you don't quite know what it is, or you want to make sure that people, if someone has edited or changed something, you want to know what it was they changed. You can have certain policies that control what you send to them without having to employ a third-party software company to do this all for you. So say you send a highly confidential email to somebody, as you can see here, Laura from Northwind Traders attempts to open a file, but Business Premium verifies that she's actually an employee and decrypts the file for her. But say, for instance, she sends that on to another company that is outside of her organization and goes, hey, this is quite interesting. That other company cannot open that document because Adrian has set it up as this can only be opened by Northwind Traders employees, nobody else. And then he gets a notification to say that such and such has tried opening this document. And then he can do his investigations to say, oh, actually, Laura sent it to them. So there's a paper trail in terms of what people are doing. But if somebody does access that, maybe because your controls are open, you can get notified whenever somebody does open an email or an attachment that you've created and you're the author of that document. And you can get notified and decide what they are allowed to do with it. Are they only allowed to read it? Are they allowed to edit it? And if they have edited it, what have they changed? And you can find out what that is as well. So it's quite a clever piece of technology. And again, it doesn't even matter if that employee, like Laura, takes it onto a pen drive, goes to another company and attempts to log in, because it will still ask her to log in with her Entra ID that she's got with Northwind Traders. And as long as you've disabled that when she leaves the company, she will not be able to take any information with her to a competitor. That's quite interesting. And this follows the same path when it comes to personal devices. 58% of employees' devices are configured with improper security controls. And I would say that number is even higher with people using their own personal phones to access work-related content as well. I will admit, and thankfully my company has a mobile application policy, but I typically log on to emails or Teams to, maybe because my phone battery died on my work phone, or I forgot my work phone, or I've lost it. It's in my bag somewhere, or I've left it at home or something, or left it in the car. And I really need to reply to an email or respond to something or log in or whatever. And I will typically use my personal phone. But because we've got a policy that allows me to, I'm allowed to do that. But a lot of companies out there do not have a policy for that. They just think, oh, we've issued a work company phone, we've issued a work company laptop, we're fine, we're good. All the devices, people are only using those machines. But that's not the reality, especially with hybrid working. Now, there's two different ways that you can control with Intune. You've got device management, which is the devices that you issue that are company owned and company maintained. And you can report back on the compliance of them and, only enroll the devices and only let the devices you want to sign up to your VPN or something like that. But then you've got mobile application management, which allows you to control what apps are they trying to access work-oriented information from their personal phone. So if they've got Outlook or they've got Word, PowerPoint, Excel, etc., or Adobe or whatever, you can say that they are allowed to download those apps on their personal phone, of course, and access company-oriented information, but they cannot edit on their personal phone. They cannot screenshot when they're in that application. And if they are, do you want to get notified? Do you want to tell the user they're not allowed to do that? And again, if that user has left the business, maybe you've taken all their company devices back off them and you think that's great, but maybe they took some data with them and you didn't even know about it. You can remote wipe information that is company authored and company created from a personal machine. So that, if you were to leave the business and you want to take anything with you, you can remove that information. And then finally, we've got Cloud App Security and Cloud App Discovery. So this is what I was talking about earlier when it comes to the apps side of things. It monitors the traffic of what people are downloading and accessing, and what are those apps downloading and how big is that? So you can see here on this screenshot, there's over 305 apps that are being looked at, logged in from over 2,000 IP addresses across 3,500 users, and it's generating around 336 gigabytes of network traffic. So you can have a look and see what exactly is causing the most traffic. Is it Microsoft? Is it something else? And you can see here at the very top of discovered apps, it's Google Drive. But my company doesn't use Google. Seems like every user is using Google instead. And you can, again, unsanction that app, block that from being used, and so on and so forth. And then you can see the top entities in terms of what people are using. So you can see here that, Contoso is the name of the business, and there's a few random things here. And you can see what user is creating the most traffic, because if there's a threat actor in your organization and they're using an application to download and copy information from your organization, you can see what user that is and block the user or block the applications in real time. But it's important to know there's over 16,000 apps that Cloud App Discovery and Cloud App Security can monitor and allow you to control, so that you're only sanctioning and using the applications that you allow them to as well. So yeah. And then finally, AI. We have to talk about AI on this because it's becoming increasingly common and increasingly used in the workplace. So when it comes to looking into AI, AI already exists in Microsoft products. Teams, for example, when it comes to transcription, it's using AI to have a look at what the user said and give you the text of what they said in what language. Predictive text is AI, where it guesses the next word you're going to say. But again, we want to go a bit more granular than that. We want to be able to find information by using Copilot as an example. Now, Copilot can be attached to any Microsoft 365 license. You can see here that the foundational security controls are there. You've got MFA, you've got search and export results, you've got audit logs, retention and deletion policies for any content that people are searching from. But we want to go further. We want to ensure that people are not finding information that they shouldn't be finding. And you can prevent that from happening with the likes of Business Premium and Microsoft 365 E3 and E5, where you can say anything in this SharePoint site is marked as confidential because it's internal related employee things, but it's for a specific department. Maybe it's the HR department. Well, you can say that this label, we're going to label all this content as only available to the people within this department. And anybody outside of the department cannot find this information or access it. So it's important to know that when you're thinking about a Copilot strategy for AI, and you want to be able to give the users, or you're worried that users might unintentionally find data that's been hidden away for years, or you might not think that they've got the right policy in place, you can put policies in place before you deploy Copilot to say that my users will not accidentally find out people's salaries, or my users will not accidentally find out case-related information for cases that they're not even a part of. And you can put in those controls and barriers for them and ensure that, Copilot is only finding information that is relevant to that person and that they're allowed to access. So it's quite important. But yeah, if you do want to speak a bit more about Copilot and AI, please get out in touch with the Quiss team who can support you further. And that's it. Hopefully you're not asleep by now, but we've got time now for Q&A.
Fantastic, Peter. Thank you very much indeed for that. That was really comprehensive, and I think the slides are incredibly helpful as well. So as I said, this is going to be recorded and we'll send that out to you along with the slides. And so I think we've had a couple of comments in the question box at the moment. I think they looked more like comments rather than questions as such, just on the presentation, but a couple of other ones that came in earlier. And please do put any more questions into that Q&A whilst we're answering these. First one is, well, I think we've sort of looked at what are the useful AI features, if anything, of Microsoft 365. I think in terms of Copilot, we're probably going to run a specific session on that for people, aren't we, in the future? Because I think that's something that people are asking a great deal about. So if you've got any particular concerns on or questions on Copilot, then that's something we can certainly address. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that, Peter.
Just that Copilot will always inherit your security and compliance controls. So if you've got the controls to say, Copilot can only look in these SharePoint sites, Copilot can only do certain things. Again, you can only issue Copilot to specific users. You do have the complete control and flexibility of that. Or if you're unsure whether people are asking malicious questions, maybe questions that they shouldn't, what's my boss's salary types of things, you can have notifications and alerts to say, when this is happening as an example, or certain words or phrases. But again, you can set up certain rules and privileges to control and make sure that everyone is using AI safely in the environment. But the important thing to know here is that it does inherit your security controls and principles.
Fantastic.
It doesn't learn or share that information with Microsoft.
Wonderful. That's really helpful. Thank you very much. Again, another question, whether it might be more for the Quiss team. Is it possible to convert a Microsoft personal account into a Microsoft business account and retaining all that historic data? So calendar, emails and folders. I guess this might be particularly relevant to, say, somebody if they've started off as a sole practitioner and then trying to upgrade, or maybe taking on a second person.
I have to find the answer to that. I don't know if you know the answer off the top of your head, Pete.
I would have thought yes, with the different tools that are provided there. I know native tools within Microsoft would not allow it, but definitely third-party tool would. I would assume so, because all you're directing it is to, I want to copy all the information from this mailbox to a different mailbox, just a standard migration. But I've never seen it not do it for a personal one. Again, I've never been asked that question before, so it's quite intriguing to see that. But I would have said, I'm 95% sure you can do that, yes.
Yeah, so if I can add, I was going to say I reached out to one of our internal architects, and he basically confirmed that if you're sort of a singular person or a small firm with a couple of users, that they can be uplifted to business licenses. If you're an executive who uses a personal subscription and you want to migrate to a corporate account, you can. There's just obviously a little bit more involved with that, but obviously if anybody is interested in that, then they're more than happy to reach out, and we can obviously have further conversations behind the scenes with them.
Wonderful. Thank you for that clarification, Rebecca. I don't think, I'm just having I don't think we've had any more specific questions in. I'm assuming that it's been so comprehensive, either answered them, Peter, or they're all sat there scratching their heads. In which case, and if you are scratching your head and you don't want to take this recording and presentation away, if you do have any questions and you just want to pick up the phone or drop the guys at Quiss an email, I know that's precisely what they're there for. They're really happy to talk to you through all the various options and can probably re-explain things as well, because again, it can be quite bamboozling, I think, all of this.
It can be, but I've been involved in licensing for about 4 years now, and whenever I first started learning about it, I was thinking, oh yeah, there's business, there's personal and there's family subscriptions and all that sort of thing. And then it's like there's E1, there's E3, there's F3, there's E3, there's business standard, business. I was like, whoa, why is Microsoft make it so confusing? But being 4 years into it, you look at it and it's almost like a staircase. There's certain features and certain functionality that just gets better and better and better, but it's not always going to be in the price point of what you would expect. So sometimes there's cheaper things that have much better technology than the stuff that's more expensive. And it's best to pick up with the experts on that. So if you do want just a free consultation, just a free little chat and say, hey, look, this is our situation. Is everything in order? I want a second opinion on, are we doing things in the right way? Are we licensed correctly? Are we compliant with Microsoft terms and conditions? Maybe my users are over licensed, or maybe I'm paying too much, or maybe I don't know what this product does and I think it's already included in what I've already got. Why am I paying separately for it? We can absolutely have a look and just give you some free advice on, are you set up in the right way and what could you do better?
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. I think that's going to be particularly useful. Certainly my takeaway was, the ability to have people on different licenses depending on their function as well. And I thought that was a really good takeaway, together with the do not unsubscribe button. I mean, once you say it, it makes absolute sense, doesn't it? That, put it where people are most likely to go.